Hello, and welcome to the Intermittent Fasting for the Win podcast. I'm your host, Mike Saunders, and I'm thrilled to be here with you. A little about me. I've shed over 80 pounds and counting, and regained my health by embracing this incredible lifestyle of intermittent fasting. It's changed my life in so many ways that it would take an entire podcast just to go over them. So let me ask you, are you ready to take your fasting to the next level and unlock its full potential? Maybe you're feeling stuck and need some fresh inspiration to keep pushing forward. Or perhaps you're on the hunt for some practical tips to make fasting easily fit into your lifestyle. Well, you've landed in the right spot. On this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of intermittent fasting, bringing you real stories, expert advice, and so much more. We'll be interviewing fellow fasters from all walks of life, shining a light on their progress, their struggles, and their victories. Stick with us because we've got all of this and plenty more to help you make intermittent fasting a win for you. Today we talk with Sheila Borie. Sheila began her intermittent fasting journey in February of 2020. She writes, "While on the last day of a fun vacation trip, I found myself extremely miserable with joint pain, bloating, puffiness, and very little energy. In that moment, I realized I had to get my weight under control. That's when I decided to look into intermittent fasting. I'm proud to say because of that decision, I regained my life after losing 60 pounds and experiencing all the incredible health benefits that come with a fasting lifestyle." Well, let's get started right into this, and I'm going to ask you this first question, and you can take 5 or so minutes, or just lay it out like it was. And what inspired you to try intermittent fasting in the first place?
All right. Well, I started intermittent fasting in February of 2020, but I need to go back to how I got there because when I started intermittent fasting, I didn't have anyone that knew anything about it. I didn't know anything about it. So, probably about, I don't know, a couple of months prior to me starting intermittent fasting, so in 2019, I was in a Facebook group for a Beachbody workout group that I was involved in. But I didn't really spend a lot of time in that Facebook group, but it would show up in my feed, and sometimes I'd see things and it'd get my attention and I would look at it. Well, one day in particular, there was a post that somebody made about, they were struggling to lose weight. They were doing this workout and doing all the things, and nothing was working. So, of course, that got my attention because there was like 100 and something comments. So I started going through the comments, and it was the same old stuff. And then I got to one, and this lady posted, she said, "Get the book, Delay Don't Deny by Jen Stevens. You can eat whatever you want. You just eat within a certain amount of time of the day." And so it kind of got my attention. And I think I asked a question or two back to her in that group. And I think she sent me a link to a Delay Don't Deny Facebook group. And I don't know, I can't remember for sure if it was actually the one that Jen ran at the time back in 2019. And I got into that group. And over the next several weeks or so, I would pop in and just look and see what was going on. And I was just amazed at all these pictures of people that were just, it was phenomenal. I was just like blown away. And I kind of tucked that back in the back of my mind, thinking, well, this sounds like it's really hard because, you can only eat within a certain amount of time. And I just didn't think any more about it. So fast forward to February of 2020, my husband and I were on vacation, a fun vacation. And I think it was the last day of our vacation, and we were doing a lot of walking. And by the end of all that, I was just miserable. Well, I was miserable the whole time on the vacation because I didn't fit in my clothes good, and I had plantar fasciitis, and I was bloated, had gut issues. I mean, you just name it. I was just a train wreck at 55 years old. And after that particular day, the last day of our vacation, getting in the car, and I had pulled down the visor and saw the mirror, and I looked and I was like, "Oh my gosh, who is that?" Because my face was just like bloated, and my feet were swollen. I was like, "Okay, you got to do something here. You can't go the rest of your life like this. Something's got to give." And I told you I tucked that Facebook group away in my head somewhere. Well, it came out. It was like, delay, don't deny. When I get home tomorrow, because we flew home the next day, when I get home, I'm going to go order that book from Amazon. And that next night, whenever I eat my dinner, I'm going to fast and I'm going to try to hold off on my breakfast and see how long I could go for lunch. So that's how I got started. And like I said, I didn't have anybody in my circle, in my friends group or anything that was doing this because I had never even heard of it. And so let's see, get my train of thought here. So
Well,
that's how I got started.
let me
And like I
ask
said, I went into
let me ask
do what?
you let me ask
hmm
you, uh, your total weight loss now, how much is that?
I lost 60 pounds from when I started, but my range is up to about 55 pounds, is about where I have landed.
Okay, and that's what I call the IBW or your ideal body weight.
Yeah, my lowest, I hit 60-pound weight loss. I stayed there for a minute and then I started going back up. And then I just sort of kind of leveled out at this 5 pound range.
Well, now,
So at 55 pounds.
did you use ADF or just, OMAD, or how did you do it?
Um, in the well, in the beginning, as soon as I got my book, I realized that let me back up. I realized I thought it was just skipping breakfast, and it was eating lunch, a snack, and dinner. It's kind of what I had in my mind when I first got started before I really got into the book and started knowing what I was doing. So I would just skip breakfast. Now, granted, I was drinking coffee with creamer in it because I had not gotten into the real group that had the big. I don't know if you're aware of the graphic that was floating around. It still floats around every now and then about what you can have, what breaks the fast, what doesn't break the fast. Okay, I had not seen that yet. That came about several days later or a week later. So I was having a little bit of cream in my coffee, and I was doing fine without eating breakfast. But then I took my lunch. I didn't change what I was eating. I was still eating whatever it was I was eating, whether it was fast food or a sandwich from home, just whatever. I was eating what I normally ate. And I'd take a lunch, and I would try to hold off on my lunch as long as I could. So maybe about 1 o'clock, and I would be pretty hungry at 1 o'clock to eat my lunch. And then I might have a snack in the afternoon and then have dinner. So I did that for about the first couple of days. And then I got my book from Amazon. When I got my book from Amazon, Delay Don't Deny, that was the first edition. Um, I was off that day. So I sat in a chair and I read that book from cover to cover
In one day.
in one day.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm sitting there reading this. You've read that book, right?
Yeah.
Have you read that book? Okay. I was reading that and I'm like,
Well,
oh my gosh.
actually, my first book by her was, Fast, Feast, Repeat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that one came later. But I'm sitting there reading this book and it's like a conversation. She's just like talking to you. I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, she's a teacher like I was.
Yeah.
And um, she her diet history sounded just like my story. It was like, why can't I lose weight? And it just made sense. It was like, I was mad.
Yeah.
I was mad because I had been working with a personal trainer doing these boot camps, having these energized shakes and doing all this stuff. And I was so mad because it was like, that's wrong.
Yeah,
So anyway, I guess understanding the insulin and all that, it's like, this makes sense. So in that same day that I read the book, I think she had a section in there about her Facebook group. So I went and found the correct Facebook group and
that's
started
important.
looking at
That's
all that.
important. That,
Yeah. So I found that group, and it was a large group, but it was a wealth of information. And I finished that book in that one day. And I want to say somewhere along the way in that same week, I don't know if it was in the book or if it was on her Facebook page, but somewhere I came across her talking about the obesity code by Dr. Jason Fung. Well, I had heard of him, but I always thought about as being he was like the diabetic doctor, and that wasn't on my radar. So I read that book. That one was a hard one to get through because I really didn't understand most of it. But the most important part was at the very end of the book when he was talking about the insulin response. And then it made sense what Jen Stevens was saying in her book. And I made the connection that, okay, well, I've been drinking soft drinks throughout the day. Diet Coke didn't matter. It was still something that was causing insulin. And no wonder I'm so hungry. And that's when I realized no creamer in my coffee. So I had to drink it black. Well, that was okay. I was all in. If you told me I had to drink my coffee black, I'm going to do it. And I did it. I just cut the creamer. It was horrible at first, but I thought, if I'm going to do this, doing it right.
but let
So
me. I have
uh,
to ask the question. It was horrible at first, but now you can't think of drinking it any other way.
I haven't tried any creamer in my coffee probably in about 3 years, but I remember one time I was so excited because I was having an earlier window early on back in my journey, and I thought, "Oh, I'm gonna have coffee with some half and half in it, and it's gonna be so good." It was horrible, and I never have touched the creamer again. So,
That's awesome.
the more dark the coffee is, the more strong it is, the better I like it.
Okay, well, let me ask you this question, okay? What are the significant changes in your physical health and your mental clarity since you started fasting?
I have a ton of energy.
Yeah, I
I
know
work with
you do.
That's what's funny is because when I first started, that was something that I noticed like in the first week or two was all of a sudden in the afternoons, I wasn't having these slumps. Every afternoon at work, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm dying. I'm tired. I'm yawning. I couldn't stop yawning. And just no energy. I want to come home and just sit in the chair and do nothing the rest of the evening. So I noticed early on something was different because I had this crazy energy. And um still hasn't changed. I still have a lot of energy during the day. But that was the first thing I noticed, and I realized, dang, I feel good. I don't remember ever feeling this good. And you don't know how bad you felt until you start feeling good. That's so true.
Say that again.
You don't know how bad you felt until you started feeling good.
There you go.
So so that was my motivation was like, I feel great, you know? And I remember I didn't really understand all this ketosis stuff, but I kind of started getting the idea of what she meant because I would be at work in the middle of the afternoon and I'd start getting a little bit maybe tired, whatever, and then all of a sudden I get this burst of energy, and it would be like I'd get a chill, might even tingle. It was like it was just the craziest thing. And so I thought, okay, that's got to be something to do with this fasting because that's when my energy would pick up. And I got to where after about a week, I didn't want my lunch that I had fixed. So I stopped fixing lunch, but I brought emergency snacks because I was afraid I was going to get hungry. And I don't know, for maybe a couple of weeks, I would have an emergency snack on hand, but I never used it. So finally, I had the confidence to just leave it at home, not even bring it. I can just work all day till I get home at 5 and I'm good. So I kind of sort of started slow with like 2 meals and a snack, but it didn't last long because I was feeling so good that I just ripped the Band-Aid off and just did
Well,
1 meal.
let me ask you, how long did it take before you started feeling better about yourself?
Pretty soon, and it just sort of kinda got grew.
And I relate to you on that because that's, uh, once I started intermittent fasting and I had lost maybe 10, 15 pounds within a few
Yeah.
weeks, I said, I really began starting to feel better about myself.
Yeah,
I felt like I wasn't just a loser anymore, you know?
yeah. I think it started off slow, it was gradual, and it just kept building, and, I don't know, it just gave you a confidence because you finally had control of something. And speaking of control, let me mention this. I found intermittent fasting at the perfect right time because it was February 2020, right before all the crazy stuff with the pandemic. So I already had like a month head start into the fasting, was doing really well with it. And then all of a sudden, all the stress and all the uncertainty about everything going on in the world, that there was one thing I could control was when I was going to eat.
Yep,
And that was just perfect.
yep. It's amazing, isn't it? Well, let
So
me
yeah,
ask
so
you.
it's just crazy to think that some lady on that Facebook group back in 2019 posted a little blurb, and it was a seed that she planted that she has no idea.
Well, that's kinda like it is with me, and I had to go back and remind, Courtney, you know Courtney.
Yes. Love Courtney. She's a
I
precious.
wasn't even on a Facebook group or anything. I didn't even know what intermittent fasting was, but Courtney posted a before and after picture on her personal page, and we had been friends on Facebook for several years, and I saw this huge difference. And so, I just sent her a message. I said, "What did you do to lose this weight?" And that was my introduction to, and I will owe that girl for the rest of my life, you know?
Yes, I understand that.
And
Yes.
that's why what we're doing today, what you're doing is so important and it's gonna encourage so many people. And I just thank you for being on here. Let me move on. How do you handle hunger or cravings uh when you're fasting?
Now I just ignore them
Ah.
because, well, it's like, I do get waves of hunger,
Yes,
but I know it's going to pass, and I know I'm not ready to eat yet. I'm not going to die, and it can wait.
it's not an
However,
emergency.
right, it's not an emergency. However, there have been some times, especially if been very, very active over the course of a few days, and I probably haven't eaten enough over those days, that I will have certain days that it's like I wake up and it's not like a nagging hunger. It's just a feeling of I need more food today. I need a little more food today. And I'm not talking junk food or sweets or what. It's like I know I need more food today, and it's just a different. It's I don't know. It's hard to explain. And so whenever I have those, then it's like okay, I'm going to eat more food today, and then it passes.
So, in other words, what you're telling me, and it's something that I already know, but there's somebody out there that needs to know this. Your body will let you know if you need if you need to eat something a little extra.
Exactly. And it will also tell you what foods to eat, what
Wait, let's
nutrients.
see. You're in a perfect segue there because that was my next question. And that that would be
Well, this is a funny story. This goes back probably 3 years ago, maybe even longer, because it was very early on when I experienced this. Okay, I I did not like broccoli in my pre-IF days, only unless if it was steamed with some butter, maybe some melted cheese sauce or something. But raw broccoli, forget it. You know, even with ranch, forget it. I didn't really like broccoli. But if I was somewhere and it was an option for a vegetable, I would eat it because I felt like I was supposed to. Okay. So, like I said, early on, probably 3 years ago, it was very early on. One day I was at work and all I could think about was broccoli. So all I could think about was broccoli. I couldn't get broccoli out of my mind. I thought I want some raw broccoli with maybe a little bit of ranch. And I think I even texted my husband and said, I want some broccoli. He thought I lost my mind. So I even stopped at Publix, got some broccoli, brought it home, cut it all up, had some ranch, and I sat there and ate that broccoli, and it was so good. And I have been on a broccoli kick ever since. That no day is complete, for the most part, unless I've had some raw broccoli with.
My wife and
Yes.
I, Miss Vicky, uh, we'll eat broccoli with butter. We'll eat broccoli raw in a salad. We'll eat broccoli is just so amazing, is it not?
It is. But that was my first experience of having this feeling of this is what I want to eat. I had never experienced that before. And then I had a run of steak. That was expensive. I think my husband was glad when I got off that kick because all I wanted to eat was steak. So it's just funny how certain things, and now my obsession is sweet potatoes. A baked sweet potato, it doesn't need anything on it, just some olive oil, roast it in the oven. It's all I need. I could eat it hot, I could eat it cold, you know, diced, fluffed, it doesn't matter. But sweet potatoes are my obsession now.
That's
And so
that's
that's one thing.
that's what Vicky and I had last night. She cooked cabbage and bacon with some beef sausage, and we had a sweet potato on the side, and I had a pat of butter in mine, but I could have done without the butter. I mean, because the sweet
It's so
potato is
delicious.
just it's so good, you know?
It is. So that's my obsession now are sweet potatoes. So every Sunday I cook several for the week. So they're in the refrigerator so I can have them whenever I want a sweet potato.
So
So yeah, it's just funny because your body will tell you when you start eating well, eating nutritious whole foods, you can really tell what it is you want
so what
sometimes.
you're telling me and what you're telling the rest of the world right here is intermittent fasting is gonna change what you think about what you want to eat. And
Exactly.
I I have compared it a couple of times with, I'll never know what it's like to be pregnant, but I think the closest thing I'll come to that is my cravings have changed, and I feel kinda like a pregnant woman, like, I want some of this and I want it all the time.
Yeah. Well, and going back to the early days for anybody who's just now starting, now my eating was not good in the beginning. That is something that has just evolved naturally over time. It's not been forced, it's just happened. Because I will tell you, when I first started intermittent fasting and I was only eating that one meal a day, I mean, I was literally eating within an hour when I got home, but I was shoving everything I could get in that 1 hour for the first, I don't know, till I got used to it and understood what I was doing. Kind of worried me though. But I would come home and open the pantry, and it was delay, don't deny. I had gone all day. I pulled a bag of chips. I would sit there and just eat chips after chips. And it didn't take long doing that behavior for several days or however long it lasted that you learned real quick that doesn't feel good. And I fasted all day and I'm going to eat this junk. I want something good. So planning is so important. What is it that you want when you get home? And you may have to do a little work on the front end so that it's readily available when you are. So that was one thing that I learned was that quickly learned that I didn't want those chips. Now, do I want chips today? Sometimes I enjoy some chips,
Yep.
you know, but it's not the whole bag. And it's like I could eat four. and be done and not the whole bag and still be hungry. So it's amazing the changes that happen. And here's my other, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but here's my other thing for anyone starting out is that I think what made me successful was because, like I said, as soon as I read Jen's book, it led me to Dr. Jason Fung's obesity code. And then it led me to Dr. Benjamin Bickman's work. I mean, I was getting a book from Amazon every week and reading a book every week. And it was funny because my husband would be like, here's another book. But I was reading and then I would read stuff to him and he was starting to see the changes. And so he started getting on board with me with it for about a month or so after. But his struggle was the black coffee, but that's another story. But but like I was saying, I think in order to be successful, you have to dive in head first and just read everything you can find. Some you're going to agree with, some you won't, but you understand what it is you're doing and what you're going through. And then I'll say the podcast, Internet Fasting Stories, and then the Intermittent Fasting podcast that Jen did with Melanie Avalon. I listen to those all day. Luckily, my job allows me to put in earbuds and I can listen to podcasts all day. I started at number one on Intermittent Fasting Stories, and I just kept going, 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 and it was amazing. I just couldn't believe this, and um, so and then Facebook communities. I started finding Facebook communities. Some good, some not so good. I'm in some great ones now. I love my Facebook community that we have all merged into. I mean, it's amazing. That's the biggest support right there. And I was going somewhere else with my thought. I'm sorry. um, anyway, so yeah, I think you've got to really understand what it is why you're doing this and why it works. That's what I was going to say. I was in the beginning, I was tracking my weight every day. I'd get on the scale, and I would only record like on Friday, but I would pop in during the week to see what was going on because it was so exciting. Because after about a week, I guess I was one of the lucky ones because I did see weight loss, or I saw pounds coming off on the scale early on, maybe after about 2 weeks. And it was like maybe the first week was like 3 pounds. I mean, it was just and then pound a week until it slowed down. But it took me 20 months to lose 60 pounds. But I would get on the scale and I would track my weight on Fridays. I think it was Fridays, and pop in every now and then just because I was excited to see what it's going to say. And I guess I was keeping track of how many days I had been doing intermittent fasting, and I think I hit the 4 week mark, the month mark. And I was like, "Well, I've done this for a month." And I can't tell you how much I lost because I don't have that in front of me, but I thought, "I feel really good. I've done this for a month." And then the second month came. Then the third month came. And then all of a sudden I realized, "Oh my gosh, I've been doing this for 6 months. I've never done anything for 6 months and had success." And it just went on from there. Next thing I know, it was a year, then 2 years. It was like, it was crazy. And I had done so many diets over the years, and I would lose 10 pounds, maybe 15. I never, I was always overweight. I never lost enough weight to be even considered at goal weight, much less ever trying to figure out how to maintain my weight. I just happy if I could lose 10 pounds. And of course, you'd lose 10 pounds, you'd gain that plus more back. But that was the funny thing about intermittent fasting was because the months were going by and I was still losing weight. In fact, when I first started intermittent fasting, I had a weight that I had set that was going to be my goal. And I'll tell you, I started out at 212 pounds. I'm 5'6". I started at 212 pounds. I had never, well, I won't say never, but I had not been under 200 pounds very many times in my adult life after my 40s, I guess. Um, so the few times that I would go on a diet and lose weight, I always wanted to get to like 199. And that was always so hard to get there. And I do think so. So my goal was like, I'm going to get to 180. If I get to 180 pounds, man, I will have arrived. I will be right where I want to be. Well, would you know that it wasn't very long that I hit that 180 pounds? And I was like, wow. So then I had to reset my goal. And then I had a goal in mind, and I got there. That the 152 pounds because I wanted to lose 60 pounds. And I didn't stay there very long, but I was okay with that because I was happy with where I landed. And so my weight went from I weigh about 156 pounds now. So I'm about 4 pounds over my lowest weight that I hit. But I have over the years, over time, different seasons have bounced back up to like 162. But I've been able to reel it back in, know what to do to get it back down. So maintenance.
That's key. That's key. Once you get to the place where you're at, you know what to do if you see it start to creep back up. It's
Exactly.
so simple. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Just dial in that window a little bit, you know?
You don't even have to get on the scale to know if you've
No,
gone back up or not
you
because
don't.
your clothes, the way you feel, you'll know. You'll know.
Well,
And
Sheila,
and
one thing, and we'll wrap it up with this one thing right here. I want you to encourage those who are just starting or who have never heard of it before, but they stumbled up onto this podcast. Tell them, tell them that they can do it in your own words.
if you are struggling with your weight, you can lose weight, feel good about yourself with intermittent fasting, but you just have to understand the science behind it. You've got to read the books, and yeah, I'm sure you tell you the books, but um, read Delay, Don't Deny, Fast Feast for Repeat, understand the science behind it, and just get immersed into a community of people that will support you, and you can do it. I am living proof at
You
age 60.
you are living proof. And like you say, I'm sitting here staring up at Jason Fung's book. I'm sitting here staring at a book from uh, Peter Attia. I'm sitting here staring at Graham Curry's book. But I'm here to tell you, and I know that you will agree with what I'm fixing to say. The number one book that you should read, or number one and two books you should read, are both by Jen Stevens.
Yes,
And
I
both
agree wholeheartedly.
yeah, fast, feast, repeat, and delay, don't deny. If you can get your hands on those books, and they run sales on them sometimes at Amazon.
They do.
Yeah,
And I have given away so many copies to people that I have to keep replenishing my stock because if I loan my book to somebody, whether they stick with it or not, keep the book. Don't worry about giving it back to me. If you don't want the book, give it to somebody else.
I'm not like that. I loaned my book to my daughter, my youngest daughter, and she was up in North Carolina, and it took forever for me to get it back. And when I got it back, I said, "Ain't nobody ever getting this book again."
Well, you just buy extra copies. But yeah, and the thing is between the two books, I guess it depends on your personality. If you need a quick read to kind of get you started, I would say Delay Don't Deny. And the second edition now is out. And then after you read that, you want to dig a little deeper, then get the Fast Feast Repeat.
Mhm.
And but unless you're just ready just to take it all in at once, Fast Feast Repeat. But for me, I was fortunate that I had Delay Don't Deny because it was like a conversation with her telling me what was going on and why nothing worked. And like I said, I was mad at that trainer.
Yeah. Listen, Sheila, this has been just a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and I'm so glad that we had it. And I know that it's going to affect so many people out there. I thank you for being with me today.
Thank you.
If you need more information on fasting and want to join a group of people who embrace this lifestyle, let us recommend that you go to Facebook and search for Intermittent Fasting for the Win, and also search for Clean Fasting Jolene. Either of these groups will help you along the way. We also recommend that you read Jen Stevens' books, Delay, Don't Deny, and Fast, Feast, Repeat. Both of these books will give you valuable information to help you in your intermittent fasting journey.